The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wide enough to house a small starship. Its crystal walls sparkled with the light of 1,000 stars, while hundreds of alien representatives sat in rising tiers that reached toward the distant ceiling. Today's meeting had drawn an unusually large crowd. The topic: Primitive Species Assessment. Moving on to System 47,821, commonly known as Sol, announced head speaker Wilson, his tentacles waving gently as he gestured to the holographic display floating in the chamber center. The dominant species calls themselves humans. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Many of the council members had already read the preliminary reports and found them amusing. A species that still relied on chemical rockets. How quaint. In the highest tier, hidden in the shadows, sat High Counselor Marcus Reed. His face remained carefully neutral as he watched the proceedings. None of the other council members knew he was human. His presence here was humanity's greatest secret, maintained through decades of careful planning and advanced holographic technology. As we can see, continued Wilson, pointing to Earth's image, they have achieved basic spaceflight and established a small colony on their red neighbor planet. Their technology level is approximately Grade 3, making them suitable for eventual integration as a protectorate species. The display showed videos of human rockets launching from Earth, clumsy space stations orbiting their world, and the small Mars base that housed a few hundred colonists. Everything the Council saw had been carefully staged for their observation satellites. What about their military capabilities? Asked Representative Green, an insectoid being from the Outer Rim. Should we be concerned about any resistance when we make first contact? Wilson clicked through more images. Their weapons are primitive. Nuclear fission, basic ballistic missiles, and projectile-based personal arms. Nothing that could threaten a standard Council peacekeeping force. Marcus Reed shifted slightly in his seat, suppressing a smile. Below, the Council members continued their assessment, completely unaware that humanity had mastered anti-gravity technology over a century ago. I propose we begin the standard integration process, Wilson announced. We'll send a diplomatic fleet to demonstrate our superiority and offer them protection. Based on historical data, primitive species usually accept our terms within days of seeing our ships. Seconded, chirped Representative Green. They seem harmless enough. Perhaps they'll make good maintenance workers for our ships once they're properly trained. More laughter filled the chamber. Marcus made a small note on his datapad, encrypting it with quantum algorithms far beyond the Council's capabilities. The note simply read, "They took the bait. Proceed with Phase 2. All in favor of beginning integration procedures for species 47,821. Each?" Wilson asked. Hundreds of appendages rose in agreement. The vote was unanimous, except for Marcus Reed, who abstained, a common enough occurrence that no one paid it any attention. "Excellent," Wilson concluded. "I'll dispatch the diplomatic fleet immediately. They'll arrive in the Sol system within 2 standard weeks. Let's make this quick and clean. We have many other primitive species to assess today." As the Council moved on to discussing other worlds, Marcus Reed quietly stood and left the chamber. In a secure transmission room, he sent a single encoded message to Earth. Council proceeding as expected. Fleet incoming. Operation Trojan Horse is go. The message would reach Earth in seconds through quantum channels the Council couldn't detect. When it arrived, massive underground facilities would begin final preparations. Billions of humans would quietly move into shelters built generations ago. And the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen would power up its engines, ready to teach the Council a lesson about judging species by appearances. Marcus Reed allowed himself a small smile as he rejoined the Council session. Let them laugh. Let them plan. Let them think they were the superior species offering guidance to primitive humans. In 2 weeks, they would learn the true meaning of technological superiority. The Earth they thought they knew, the weak, primitive planet stumbling into space, was about to reveal itself as something far more dangerous, and Marcus Reed would have a front-row seat to watch the Council's world shatter. The Council's diplomatic fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 50 ships, their silver hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight, arranged themselves in an attack formation disguised as a ceremonial approach. Admiral Gray stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Mercy of Stars, watching the blue planet grow larger on his view screen. "Primitive detection systems have spotted us," reported his sensor officer. "Their satellites are turning to track our approach. Their radio communications show increasing panic." Admiral Gray nodded, pleased. Fear was good. Fear made species easy to control. "Show me their military response." The main screen filled with images of Earth's space forces scrambling to react. Old-style chemical rockets carried what looked like crude nuclear weapons into orbit. A handful of small warships, barely bigger than shuttles, moved to protect Earth. The Mars base went dark, presumably hiding in fear. "Pathetic," muttered Gray. "They still use rockets with flames." But something bothered him. In his 300 years of first contact missions, he had never seen a response this clean, this perfect. It was like watching a historical recreation, rather than a real military scramble. "Send the standard greeting," he ordered, pushing his doubts aside. "Tell them we come in peace and offer our protection." The message went out in all Earth languages. The response came back quickly. Too quickly, though Gray didn't notice this detail. "This is Earth Defense Command." A shaky human voice responded. We are honored by your presence. Please allow us time to gather our world leaders." Gray smiled. Everything was going according to plan. His ships moved closer, taking up strategic positions around Earth's major cities. If the humans resisted, these positions would allow him to end any fighting before it began. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "their largest military ship is approaching. They're requesting permission to send a diplomatic team." Through the view screen, Gray watched a boxy, awkward-looking human vessel approach. It leaked radiation from its primitive engines and wobbled slightly as it moved. His sensors showed it was armed with simple nuclear weapons and what appeared to be basic laser systems. "Let them come," Gray said. "Prepare the grand reception hall. Let's show them true galactic civilization." The human ship docked with clumsy movements. The diplomatic team that emerged looked appropriately awed by the Council ship's grandeur. 5 humans in simple spacesuits, led by a man who introduced himself as Ambassador Thomas. "Welcome aboard," Gray said through his translator. "I trust our ship's magnificence helps you understand the benefits of accepting Council protection." Ambassador Thomas nodded, his eyes wide with apparent wonder. "Your technology is beyond our dreams. But before we discuss terms, I have been instructed to deliver a message from Earth's combined governments." "Of course," Gray said kindly, "though I should inform you that the terms are not negotiable. For your own protection, you understand." Thomas pulled out what looked like a primitive data tablet. Gray's security team scanned it and found nothing dangerous, just simple electronics. They didn't detect the quantum processors hidden beneath the crude exterior. "The message is simple," Thomas said, his voice changing. The fear vanished, replaced by something that made Gray's spine tingle. "Leave our solar system within 1 hour, or face immediate destruction." Gray laughed. His entire bridge crew laughed. Some even doubled over with amusement. "My dear primitive friend," he said, "I don't think you understand your situation." "No," Thomas replied calmly. "You don't understand yours. Look out your windows." Gray turned to his view screen, still smiling. The smile froze on his face. Where empty space had been moments before, thousands of ships now hung in perfect formation around his fleet. Ships that had appeared from nowhere. Ships larger and more advanced than anything he had ever seen. And they all had their weapons pointed at his fleet. 1 hour, Thomas repeated. "The clock is ticking." Admiral Gray stared at the massive human fleet surrounding his ships. His hands gripped his command chair so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Impossible," he whispered. Our scans showed nothing. Nothing. Sir, his tactical officer's voice shook. Those ships, they're not using any technology we recognize. Our sensors can't even tell what they're made of. On the bridge of the human flagship Hidden Storm, Admiral Jane West watched the Council fleet with cold eyes. For 20 years, she had trained for this moment. Her ship, like all human vessels, had been built in secret underground facilities that stretched for miles beneath Earth's surface. All ships report ready, her second-in-command reported. Planetary defense grid is powered up. Underground shelters report all civilians secured. Jane nodded. Send the formal warning. In the Council flagship's reception hall, Ambassador Thomas held up his simple tablet again. This time, it projected a massive hologram that filled the entire room. The image showed Earth, but not the Earth that the Council knew. Instead of scattered cities and primitive technology, massive fortress cities rose from the ground. Huge doors opened in the planet's surface, revealing shipyards that had been hidden for centuries. "This is the real Earth," Thomas said. "The one we kept hidden from your watching eyes. Did you really think those simple satellites you sent could see through our cloaking technology?" Gray's translator caught the edge of smugness in Thomas's voice. But the rockets, the primitive space stations, all a show," Thomas replied. "A play we performed for your benefit. Every launch, every spacewalk, every clumsy attempt at reaching Mars, all carefully staged to keep you underestimating us." On Earth's surface, more changes were happening. The fake buildings that had housed pretend primitive humans split apart, revealing advanced defense installations. The thin atmosphere that the Council's ships had detected was actually a complex shield system, now powering up to full strength. Mars underwent an even more dramatic transformation. The polar ice caps shimmered and disappeared, showing themselves to be massive holographic projections. Beneath them, huge military bases stretched across the red planet's surface. More ships poured out of hidden hangars, joining the fleet that surrounded the Council vessels. "You have 1 hour to leave," Thomas repeated. "This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is your only warning." Admiral Gray finally found his voice. You deceived the Council. This is against all galactic laws." Thomas laughed. "Your laws? We never agreed to your laws. We never signed your treaties. We watched you for centuries, learning your weaknesses, while you thought you were the ones doing the observing." In orbit around Earth, the human ships moved closer. Their hulls seemed to absorb light itself, made of materials that the Council's best scientists couldn't comprehend. Each one carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets, weapons that humanity had developed in secret while pretending to barely understand nuclear fission. 55 minutes remaining," Thomas said calmly. "I suggest you use them wisely." On the Hidden Storms Bridge, Admiral West received a message from Earth's Defense Command. The underground cities were secure. Billions of humans now waited safely beneath the planet's surface in facilities that had been built generations ago for this very moment. "Send word to our fleets near the Council homeworlds," she ordered. "Tell them to stand ready." Because this wasn't just about defending Earth. While the Council had watched humans play with rockets, humanity had spread through the galaxy using technology far beyond the Council's understanding. Hidden fleets waited near every major Council world, ready to strike if needed. The hour of revelation had come. Soon, the galaxy would learn that they had never been the advanced ones watching over primitive humanity. They had been the primitive ones all along, watched by an advanced humanity that had hidden its true nature for centuries. And their time of ignorance was about to end. The Council fleet hung motionless in space, surrounded by humanity's vast armada. Admiral Gray paced on his bridge, watching the timer count down. 40 minutes remained before humanity's deadline expired. "Show me their ships again," he ordered. His science officer brought up detailed scans on the main screen, though the scans revealed little. The human vessels seemed to swallow sensor beams rather than reflect them. "Sir," his scanner operator called out, "you need to see this. The humans, They're opening their ships. The massive human warships split apart like blooming flowers, revealing their inner workings. It wasn't a sign of trust. It was a show of power. Inside each ship, technologies beyond the Council's understanding pulsed with strange energies. "They want us to see," Gray whispered. "They want us to know how outmatched we are." On Earth, more revelations unfolded. The ground split open as hidden doors larger than cities swung wide. Below, shipyards stretched for miles into the planet's crust. Partly finished warships waited in massive construction bays. Assembly lines longer than rivers produced weapons and engines that broke the laws of physics as the Council understood them. Ambassador Thomas stood on the Council flagship's bridge, now speaking to the entire Council fleet through their communication systems. "For centuries, you thought Earth was just another primitive world. You watched us play with simple rockets and satellites, thinking we were children taking our first steps into space." His words carried weight as more of Earth's true face was revealed. The pretend cities vanished like mist, showing the real Earth beneath. Advanced spires of unknown materials reached into the sky. Transport systems that ignored gravity crisscrossed the planet's surface. Power plants that harnessed the energy of other dimensions hummed to life. "While you watched our fake shows of primitive technology," Thomas continued, "our real civilization thrived underground and behind shields you couldn't detect. Every rocket launch you saw was staged. Every primitive satellite we put up was a prop. Every radio signal you intercepted was part of the play." In orbit, more human ships appeared. These weren't warships, but civilian vessels, massive city ships that could house millions. They had been cloaked, hidden from the Council's eyes for generations. Their technology made the Council's most advanced ships look like simple toys. "Look at Mars," Thomas commanded. The Council fleet turned their sensors toward the red planet, the surface they had known. The one with small human colonies and basic dome structures flickered and disappeared. Beneath the holographic disguise, Mars was transformed. Great cities covered much of its surface. Shipyards larger than continents stretched across its equator. Billions of humans lived and worked there, all hidden from the Council's watching eyes. 30 minutes remain," Thomas announced. "Perhaps you'd like to see more. Should we show you what we've built on Jupiter's moons, or perhaps our bases in other star systems?" Admiral Gray fell into his command chair. "How?" he asked. "How did you hide all this?" "Simple," Thomas replied. "We detected your observation posts near our system 200 years ago. Instead of destroying them or revealing that we knew, we built our entire civilization in ways you couldn't detect. The primitive society you've been watching was a carefully constructed show, performed by a small number of volunteers while the rest of humanity lived and worked behind our cloaking shields." Gray looked at his tactical display. More human ships appeared every minute, dropping their cloaking fields. His 50 ships now looked tiny and weak compared to the thousands of advanced vessels surrounding them. 25 minutes, Thomas said calmly. "I suggest you spend them preparing your retreat. Unless, of course, you'd like to see what our weapons can do." On every Council ship, crews looked at their sensors in despair. They had come to guide what they thought was a primitive species. Instead, they had walked into the lair of a technological giant that had been watching them all along. And that giant was done hiding. 200 years earlier, on a cold night in the mountains, Dr. Anna Peters made the discovery that would change humanity's path forever. Her small research station, disguised as a weather monitoring facility, had detected energy signatures from several hidden alien observation posts near Earth's orbit. Instead of reporting the discovery publicly, she made a single phone call to the World Council, a secret organization that had unified Earth's government centuries ago, hidden from the public eye. "Show me again," said World President Robert Stone, standing in the underground command center beneath the fake United Nations building in New York. The holographic display showed the alien observation posts, quietly watching Earth while thinking themselves undetected. "They believe we're primitive," Anna explained, her eyes shining with possibilities. They have no idea that we mastered gravity control 50 years ago. No idea that we already have colonies on Mars hiding under holographic shields. Stone walked around the display, thinking, if they don't know our true level of technology, we can watch them back. Anna finished. Learn everything about them while they think they're the advanced ones. That meeting started Operation Hidden Earth. Over the next decades, humanity built an entirely fake civilization on Earth's surface. Simple rockets, primitive satellites, and basic space stations, all carefully designed to show their alien watchers exactly what they expected to see. Meanwhile, the real human civilization moved underground and behind advanced cloaking shields. Cities were built inside mountains and beneath oceans. The Mars colonies expanded into massive civilizations, all hidden behind technology that made them appear as bare red desert to alien observers. Keep the surface population small, Stone ordered. Just enough to make our primitive civilization look real. Everyone else moves below. Billions of humans lived and worked in vast underground cities, developing technologies far beyond what their alien watchers could imagine. They built ships that could bend space, weapons that could reshape reality, and defense systems that could stop entire fleets. Every few years, they would stage a new breakthrough on the surface. A slightly better rocket engine, a more advanced satellite, small steps that made their alien watchers nod in satisfaction, thinking they were watching a young species slowly develop. Show them what they expect to see became the motto of the Surface Theater Division, the group responsible for maintaining humanity's primitive appearance. They launched rockets that leaked radiation while real ships slipped silently between stars. They built clumsy space stations while true city ships housed millions in comfort among the asteroids. 100 years after Anna's discovery, humanity had agents in every major alien civilization. They walked among the council races, wearing disguises that hid their true nature. They learned the council's weaknesses, mapped their defenses, and prepared for the day when the mask would come off. Marcus Reed, the secret human member of the Galactic Council, was one such agent. He had worked for decades to reach his position, always pushing for the Council to investigate Earth. Such an interesting primitive species, he would say, hiding his smile as the Council agreed. Now, in the present, Ambassador Thomas stood on the Council flagship's bridge, telling this history to Admiral Gray. "We knew you were coming," he said. "We've been preparing for this moment for 2 centuries." Gray listened in shocked silence as Thomas explained how humanity had built its real civilization in secret, how they had spread through the galaxy while the Council watched their fake primitive society, how they had grown more powerful than all Council races combined while appearing to barely understand spaceflight. "Your mistake," Thomas said, "was thinking you were the advanced ones. You thought you were watching us. You never considered that we might be watching you." Outside the ship's windows, more of humanity's fleet decloaked. Vessels that bent space itself around them. Ships that could destroy stars with a single shot. Technology that made the Council's greatest achievements look like a child's toys. 15 minutes remain, Thomas announced. "Now you know the truth. What happens next is up to you." Admiral Gray made his decision with 10 minutes remaining on humanity's countdown. "All ships, battle formations. We are the Galactic Council. We will not be threatened by any species, no matter how advanced." His fleet of 50 ships spread out, weapons charging. Around them, thousands of human vessels watched silently. On the Hidden Storms Bridge, Admiral Jane West shook her head sadly. "They always choose to fight," she said. "Ambassador Thomas, please return to our ship. Give them their last chance." Thomas transmitted his final message to the Council fleet. "This is your last warning. Power down your weapons and leave. Don't force us to demonstrate our true strength." Gray's response came in the form of energy beams from his entire fleet. The powerful weapons, capable of destroying moons, shot toward Earth. The Council crews watched confidently, expecting to see the planet's surface burn. Instead, the beams vanished 1,000 miles from Earth's atmosphere. They didn't hit a shield. They didn't bounce off. They simply ceased to exist. "As you wish," Thomas said quietly. The human fleet moved. Their ships didn't turn or accelerate. They simply appeared in new positions, ignoring the laws of physics that the Council understood. Each Council ship found itself surrounded by 5 human vessels. "Fire all weapons," Gray ordered desperately. "Launch everything we have." Council ships fired their strongest weapons. Planet-killing beams, reality-warping torpedoes, and swarms of automated attack drones shot toward the human fleet. The humans made no move to dodge. Every single attack passed straight through the human ships as if they weren't there. "Impossible," Gray's tactical officer shouted. "Our weapons, they're not having any effect." "No," Thomas replied from the hidden storm. "They're having exactly the effect we expected. Now, let us show you what real weapons look like." The human ships powered up their weapons. There was no charging time, no energy buildup that the Council's sensors could detect. Small points of light appeared on each ship's hull. In an instant, every Council ship lost power. Their engines died. Their weapons went dark. Even their life support systems shut down, only to restart a moment later at minimum power. What did you do to us?" Gray asked, looking at his dead controls. "We remove your ability to produce energy," Thomas explained. "Your ships can now only use enough power to keep your crews alive. Don't worry. The effect is temporary. It will wear off once you're safely out of our solar system." The Council fleet floated helplessly in space. Some captains tried to activate their backup systems. Others attempted to send distress signals. Nothing worked. They could only watch as the human ships moved around them with impossible grace. "Now," Thomas continued, "we will escort you to the edge of our solar system. Any ship that resists will be permanently powered down and towed." 3 Council ships tried to fight back, activating hidden weapon systems. Their crews watched in horror as their vessels simply disappeared, reappearing near Neptune with all systems frozen. "How is this possible?" Gray whispered, watching his mighty fleet being herded like helpless animals. "You were primitive. We saw your technology level." "No," Thomas corrected him. "You saw what we wanted you to see. The technology we're using today was old and obsolete by human standards 100 years ago. This is just our defensive fleet. Our real military forces are elsewhere." The human ships began moving the Council fleet out of the solar system. Their advanced drives created no visible effects, but stars seemed to blur around them as space itself shifted to their will. "Remember this day," Thomas transmitted to all Council ships. "Remember what happened when you thought you could threaten Earth. And remember, what you've seen here is only a fraction of what we can do." As his ship was pulled away from Earth, Admiral Gray looked back at the solar system. The fake primitive society had vanished completely. In its place, he saw the true face of humanity's civilization, and it terrified him more than anything he had seen in his 300 years of life. The Council had come to guide what they thought was a primitive species. Instead, they had found themselves helpless before the power they had awakened. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council's main chamber was different. The Grand Hall that had once held hundreds of alien representatives now held thousands of human ships in orbit around it. Inside, Ambassador Thomas stood where Head Speaker Wilson had once dismissed humanity as primitive. Every Council world watched the transmission. They had no choice. Human technology controlled all their communication systems now. On billions of screens across thousands of worlds, Thomas began to speak. "For centuries, the Galactic Council has claimed to guide younger species. You watched us from hidden stations, thinking we didn't know you were there. You judged us, thinking we couldn't judge you back. That time is over." The room's holographic display activated, showing the true extent of human civilization. Hidden fleets near every Council world decloaked. Massive city ships appeared in systems thought to be empty. Transport gates larger than planets revealed themselves between the stars. "While you watched our fake rocket launches," Thomas continued, We spread through the galaxy. While you smiled at our primitive satellites, we built ships that could reshape space. While you planned to make us your servants, we prepared to show you the truth. On Earth, the last pieces of humanity's fake primitive civilization were being packed away. The surface cities that had been part of their centuries-long deception were dismantled, revealing the true cities beneath. The simple satellites were collected, replaced by technology too advanced for Council sensors to detect. Your Council is hereby dissolved, Thomas announced. Your fleet has been disabled. Your weapons are useless. Your defenses cannot stop us, but we are not here to destroy or conquer. In the Council chamber, High Counselor Marcus Reed stood up. His holographic disguise fell away, showing his human features. Many Council members gasped. They had never suspected one of their highest leaders was human. We could have conquered you centuries ago, Reed said, joining Thomas at the speaker's platform. We chose to wait, to watch, to learn. Now, we offer you a choice. The display changed, showing human ships helping rebuild damaged Council worlds. Advanced medical technology healing sick aliens. Clean energy systems replacing old, polluting ones. Join us as equals, Thomas offered. Learn from us as we learned from you. Help us build something greater than the Council ever was, or choose to stand alone. But know that the age of Council dominance is over. Across the galaxy, more human ships appeared. They brought food to hungry worlds. They cleaned polluted atmospheres. They offered help, not conquest. We hid our true nature because we wanted to understand you, Thomas explained. Now you must understand us. Humanity doesn't want servants. We don't want to rule. We want partners who will join us in exploring the galaxy. Real partners, not puppet states like the Council made. In orbit around Earth, the advanced human civilization continued its work. City-sized ships moved between stars as easily as walking. Construction crews built new wonders that ignored what the Council had thought were the laws of physics. You have 1 month to decide, Thomas concluded. Join us as equals in building a better galaxy, or maintain your independence knowing that the old Council's power is gone. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Across thousands of worlds, Council species looked up at the human ships above their planets. Ships that had been there for years, hidden and watching. Ships that showed them how little they had really known about the universe. In the Council chamber, Marcus Reed smiled as the alien representatives began to discuss their options. He knew what they would choose. Humanity had spent centuries planning this moment. The galaxy is about to change, he said to Thomas. Are we ready? Thomas looked at the display showing human civilization spreading across space, no longer hiding its true power. We've been ready for 200 years. Now it's their turn to learn what humanity can really do. Above them, the stars flickered as human ships moved in ways that science had once said was impossible. The age of pretending to be primitive was over. The age of humanity had begun.